So, today I will be talking about the economics of monsters. And to give us an example first, in a horror movie, you're gonna often have fairly few monster encounters. There's like one at the beginning, then perhaps some sneaking up in the middle somewhere, showing its face a little bit, and then you have some sort of endgame finale where the monster shows up for the final time. So you very carefully lay out the different times at which you showcase your monster according to narrative and build up and so forth. Now, in a game, the monsters shows up all over the place all the time as much as possible. This is not true for every horror game, of course, but it's very, very common. And you can ask yourself the questions, why is this? Why are these monsters constantly appearing throughout the game? Why can't we have it like in a movie where the monster shows up just at the right time? So, one answer to this is obviously, the player needs to have fun. It's fun shooting things. We need to have gameplay. Shooting monsters in the face is fun. It creates a core loop. Okay, this is one way that it can happen. It can be a design choice from the get-go. I'm making a game with monsters. It's a horror game. I'm going to be shooting monsters all over the experience. But that is not the only way in which it happens. In fact, you can go out with intentions of not doing this and still end up having a bunch of monsters in your game like this. So how does this happen? So let's say that you're making a UFO game. So the player is, I don't know, in a cabin or several cabins, in a camping site in the woods. UFO appears and aliens come out of it. They need to battle these aliens somehow. They're gonna encounter them. It's gonna be a scary story around aliens. So you want this. And then in an early phase of the game, you can say, so what is the player gonna do? They're gonna find a gun at some point, right? Yeah, that's good. So obviously nothing wrong with having a gun. There's UFOs after all. You gotta defend yourself. Gotta find bullets. Obviously, we need to have bullets in this game. So this is what else to shoot with? Some ammunition. Gotta have targets. And now that you're thinking about it, say, it can't just be target practice because that's boring. Well, we have the monsters, the aliens. Let the player shoot them. And the player gonna be hurt, of course. Gonna take damage, of something, and they need bandages. Yeah, bandages to heal themselves. And then also you need to find these things lying around. You can't just have them in one place. You search drawers, cabinets, whatnot. You find stuff. That's great. We have something here. So we're gonna have the aliens and all of these things. And if this sounds like your average survival horror, that's because it is. You go into this with your best intentions. And what happens now is that these things are going to pull on one another. The gun wants ammo. So you're like, I got to find ammo. So you're like, okay, I got to place ammo in my environment somewhere. And the gun says also, I need to shoot something. Okay, you gotta place these monsters to have something to shoot at. And then the player says it's gonna be bleeding, so I have to find health kits. Okay, gotta find health kits in the thing. And then you find you're not like, yeah, I gotta find stuff in the environment. Okay, let's find some health kits. And then, but in order for health kits to make sense, the player needs to be bleeding. Okay, so that means we need to have more monsters. And all of a sudden, all of these things start pulling on one another. You end up in this spiral where the gun needs something, and then the gun wants the monster, and the monster wants something, and all of a sudden this just spirals out of control, and from simple beginnings, you end up with what we call the economy. And this is the whole monsters, healing items, bullets, guns, that's the economy of this game. And the economy is a hungry beast. It's like, that bird in the nest, and it just wants more and more and more, and you constantly need to feed it. This is the core of the game, after all, in this sense. But this can become very problematic because you might have totally different things you want in your games. So, say you want these, we're calling them thematic scenes here, so T for short. And we might have things where the player like listens for alien signals and trying to pinpoint where the aliens are and try to expose them, use their signals against them. You want to research on the aliens and you want to find out more things about and capture them and mix whatever potions or mix chemicals. You want to do science in your thing because that's how a sci-fi story, this is all elements of a sci-fi story, that's what you want to be doing. But you made the economy needs to be fed. So now that you have your environment here is the camping site with some cabins, a lake, a forest, whatnot. And you need to fill this. And you're going to fill it with the economy because the economy is constantly crying for attention. Place ammo, place monsters, etc. And all of these tells you to add things, more and more things to your game. This is very dangerous if you want to have these thematic things, because these are not going to fit. You might be able to squeeze them in, but they're going to feel like an afterthought. But if they were like your main thing that you were thinking about making this game, and you just added these guns because I need to have something, and it just spirals out of control. You have you have to have a bazillion aliens running around all of a sudden, which is not what you wanted, because you wanted to have them creeping around, not showing them too much, but all of a sudden have to show them constantly. You see this a lot in games, and I've played many horror games where it's like they have been eaten by their own economy, like they're just feeding the economy and have trouble keeping up with it. And the problem here is that, you need to feed the economy for things to work. If there's nothing to shoot at, like the shooting elements are going to get boring. Why have all of these ammo lying around and so on and so forth? So what happens is that the economy doesn't lead to any thematic scenes. There's nothing that comes from, there's no draw from the economy or no needs from the economy that sort of naturally leads you to these thematic scenes that you probably want. Instead, the economy wants different kinds of things. So what happens, if you think about the game in one of these diagrams, is that the economy this is your themes, this is what you're aiming for. And you want to get your game like this, but that's not what happens because the economy comes in and takes us to a totally different place. Here's the thing. This is not that you can choose to not follow the economy. It's not like a matter of willpower to a certain degree. The thing is that once you've established the economy as a thing, the game gets bad if you go this direction, especially if you haven't grounded the thematics properly yet. You're gonna have a bad game. The worst thing is that most games sort of end up over here, which you're not meeting the requirements of the economy, which makes combat feel bland. Any game that has bland combat has done that. And then you're not meeting your themes either, because you're sort of struggling against the tide in a way, or going against the tide. So how do we fix this? How can we make so that the themes pop up in our environment instead? And so let's talk about that over here. And the first thing that you can do, the simplest one, is that you embed your themes in the economy. So lots of monsters, make sure your themes align with that. And then instead of the economy being a force that takes you aside, takes you to another direction, it's something that leads you towards your theme. And Resident Evil, hallmark of this. Like there is no other themes really in Resident Evil other than that's connected to shooting zombies and other monsters and figuring out where the new next monster is and where the ammo is and so on. They're like that's what they do. You can also see this in games like say Alien Isolations or Bunker for that matter, where this sort of monster thingy is embedded in the economy. That's what it all is. But that's not always the case, and that's also limiting. If you want to have something else, it's not always the case that it sort of comes across like that. And really, in some ways, this is sort of what you want in a naive way, but it's not that simple really. And the moment you start like just adding these elements in a naive fashion, you end up in the trap that I talked about, where the economy just drives you in a direction you may not want to. So what you want to do instead, and gonna be a very simple version of this because this can be its own video really, but is that you want to think about what ideas underline the things, the signal listening and these things. You want to think about these, and you want to think about how these can be part of the economy. I think that the thing you don't want to be doing is that you shouldn't necessarily embed it in the economy the way that Resident Evil does it. But you want to make sure that the themes dictate the economy. So when you start designing your game and the economy, you sort of say, yeah, I want the economy to be have these things, and that, oh yeah, that means this for the themes, and then yeah, but I also want this. So if you have signal listening, what economy can that do? So I mean, you find radios, just as a sort of simple example, and then yeah, so we need to use radios in this way. Okay, that dictates that. So we have to have some sort of, in the theme, there needs to be some way of listening to aliens. That's important. Then we test that. So you need to run that from the get-go. That's very important. It's also very hard, but it's a very important thing, and it's a very simple trap to fall into. And like it's, as a summary, so as you're sort of tinkering with your themes and like, yeah, I want this theme to have this, it should be about this, aliens, or whatever your theme is, behind you is the big economy lurks, and it's gonna get you. And the moment you like add a gun, add ammo, add the healing items, all those things that I talked about, without thinking it through, without going like, what does this mean for the themes, and then going back and forth here, it's gonna jump at you and it's gonna eat you. It's the themes are not gonna be anymore. The economy is just gonna take it over, or you're gonna end up with a bland game because the economy has already started dictating what a good game is. That's important. Again, it's not a matter of willpower. It's a matter of just making a good game at some point. And you sort of, by setting up the economy in various ways, you are at an early stage making choices for what a good game is in this context. And that's all there is. Hopefully that was useful, and see you next time.